Everyone who crossed paths with Bella Edwards walked away with a smile.
Bye, see you later.
They love you.
What?
3-year-old was unforgettable.
Suddenly you look like a stranger.
Anything you have to say?
Are you guilty?
Emotional flicker. You were my everything.
January 6th, 2015. The world would make way for Bella Edwards. She would be born to her mother, Shamika Gonzalez, and her father, Keelan Edwards. For both parents, it was immediate love. As a newborn, they watched her. As she lay in the glass cradle with her fist tightly bound, they realized that what they were looking at was their future. And inside of her eyes, they would see a glimpse of hope. In the beginning of her parents' relationship, things were okay. But by the time Bella was born, things were on a rocky road. Now, they would try to make it work, but it ultimately wouldn't, and they would go their separate ways. For the sake of Bella, they would remain cordial and begin their journey co-parenting. Bella would be brought into this world in Queens, New York. If you're not familiar with the area, it isn't exactly homegoing. It's had its fair share of trouble. Like any other city, it has its good places. But then there's those places that almost seem sinister. Bella would spend the majority of her life in the Rockaway Peninsula. It's a small area located in Queens. If you were an outsider visiting the state, you would call it somewhere you wouldn't really want to visit. But if you lived there, it's simply called home. As time began to pass, they would watch her grow from the crawling phase to taking her first steps, and then pronouncing her first words. With communication, she would begin to form a personality. She's described as someone with infectious energy, and although she was young, she had a positive outlook on life, someone with a positive attitude, someone who possessed the ability to brighten every room that she entered. She was smart, funny, and from the looks of her photographs, she could get a little sassy. If you had the privilege of staring into the eyes that were the same color as rain, I imagine that you would get the same serene feeling, an overwhelming feeling of peace. And if you accompanied that with the joy that she radiated, I'm sure life seemed almost perfect.
Bye, see you later.
They love you.
What?
No, you mad.
Like an average child, she had her likes. She really enjoyed Minnie Mouse. She was also a big fan of Paw Patrol. And this one will take you for a loop. She enjoyed Steve Harvey. By the year of 2018, she would be 3 years old. For now, life seems okay. She even has a stepfather at this point, a guy who goes by the name of Mark Jenkins. Mark was a guy who had met Bella's mother, and after meeting, sparks began to fly. And like deja vu, they would also welcome a child into this world. By the end of March of 2018, the baby would be 3 months old. Bella was elated to be a big sister. It seemed like things were complete. This was it, their little family. But as the saying goes, nothing is ever what it seems. From the outside looking in, everything seemed great. The neighbors thought they were a loving family. But beneath the friendly smiles, there was something hiding. Something that was dark. And when things lurking beneath the surface came to the forefront, everyone was surprised. April 2nd, 2018. It was your average Monday morning, and everything seemed normal. On this day, Shamika Gonzalez, accompanied by her mother, would both get up, and they would make their way to work. While they were at work, Mark was tasked with watching the children. Around 5 p.m. that evening, they would return from work. In normal circumstances, Bella would be there to greet her mother, but today, things were different. When her mother asked about her whereabouts, Mark would say she was in her room sleeping. In the beginning, there's no cause for concern. I mean, it's 5 p.m. and children take naps, so it didn't seem out of the ordinary. Until 5:50 p.m., her mother would go into her bedroom to check on her. While checking on her daughter, she would realize that things were off. In fact, she was unconscious. Around 6 p.m., Mark Jenkins would contact the authorities, and EMS would be dispatched to the home. Upon entering the apartment, both police and medical personnel would witness Mark Jenkins trying to resuscitate her. At that moment, EMS would take over, but they would also make failed attempts, so they would rush her to St. John's Hospital. By the time Bella arrived to the hospital, it was clear there was nothing more they could do. She would be pronounced deceased upon arrival. And just like that, an investigation would begin. An investigation set out on answering questions. What happened to baby Bella? And more importantly, why? A question that only those close to her could answer. So naturally, the detectives would turn to the ones she loved. The parents would be hauled down to headquarters for further questioning. Both Shanika Gonzalez and her boyfriend, Mark Jenkins, would be questioned by the authorities. Shamika would tell the authorities how she went to work. She came home. She found her daughter unresponsive, and she panicked. When questioned about what happened to her, she couldn't provide a theory. After all, she wasn't there, so she doesn't know. So that would leave the questioning up to her boyfriend, Mark Jenkins. But when he was questioned, he also couldn't provide any information. He would tell the authorities they went out earlier, they returned home, she went in a room to lay down, and simply never woke up. With no real evidence, both of the parents would be released, pending an investigation. They were waiting on the autopsy results to yield more clues. After all, the final report is the end-all, but also the tell-all. It begins with a blank canvas, and as the medical examiner begins to fill out the chart, it becomes a work of art. And while the work is done in a dimly lit room, the truth becomes a bright light. The autopsy results would yield that the COD was caused by blunt force trauma. In most circumstances, it's due to an injury sustained to the head region, but this was different. It wasn't. This was an injury to the abdomen. Aside from the injury to the abdomen, there was also bruising on the ankle. But that wasn't the end of it. They would also find markings on the thigh area. The medical examiner would determine that some of the markings were fresh, but some of them were older. In fact, a few of them were in the healing stage. With this being the case, the medical examiner would rule out that this was some random event. This was no accident. And in conclusion, he would rule it a homicide.
3-year-old Bella Edwards now only a memory. Police say she died after being rushed to the hospital Monday night. Her mother, Shamika Gonzalez, posting this on Facebook. Bella, I'm so sorry I wasn't there to protect you. This feels like a bad dream I can't wake up from. Police say the stepfather was alone with the child for 8 hours, and he was the one who called 911. Police now questioning both him and her mom. Police say a 3-month-old was also in the apartment at the time and was removed by the Administration for Children's Services. And according to that little girl's mother's Facebook page, they're going to be holding a candlelight vigil right here in front of the apartment building at 6 o'clock tonight. We're live in Seaside, Queens. Mark Liverman, CBS 2 News.
The investigators are now working to solve the case, and the question at hand is what truly happened. They know that Bella was in the care of a stepfather while her mother was at work, so if anyone knows anything, it would be him. The stepfather would be questioned again, but his story wouldn't change. He was sticking to it. He watched her and he doesn't know what happened. At the time, with no evidence, his story was working. That is, until they checked the surveillance tapes. After reviewing the tapes, they would come to find that Mark Jenkins had left the apartment at around 2:30 p.m. He was accompanied by Bella and his 3-month-old son. Roughly 2 hours later, he would return, and surveillance would spot him entering the building at around 4:30 p.m. When the authorities reviewed the tape, they would notice that Bella was acting off. She seemed injured.
When we saw the child coming into the building at 4:30, she appeared to be in some kind of distress.
From that tape, they were able to draw the conclusion that whatever transpired happened away from the home. For the investigators, this was enough. Mark Jenkins would officially be charged with murder.
Hey, Mark, you're a baby now. What do you got to say for yourself? Anything you have to say?
Mark, are you guilty?
Mark,
What happened yesterday?
Moments ago, Mark Jenkins is charged with second-degree murder for the death of Bella Edwards.
The 32-year-old is expected to be walked out of a precinct in handcuffs in the next hour for this case. Again, allegedly.
At the time of his arrest, there were a lot of theories flying around. The media had released that Bella Edwards had been violated, when it wasn't true. There was no evidence to substantiate that claim. As far as the autopsy findings, the mother would also say that that wasn't true. She said that if anything was going on prior, she wouldn't have been with him. But even if that's true, there was one red flag. It turns out that Mark Jenkins was no stranger to the authorities. In the year of 2004, Mark Jenkins was found guilty of attempted murder. For his role in that incident, he would serve roughly 5 years before being released.
Now this is a prior mugshot of Mark Jenkins. He was released from prison in 2011. He did time in a separate case for attempted murder.
Needless to say, he would go on to meet Shamika Gonzalez, and she would give him a second chance at life. And how did he repay her? By taking her firstborn. Mark Jenkins did have his day in court, and when it all ended, I'm not sure that justice was served.
Hi, John and Tamsin. I can tell you Mark Jenkins made his arraignment appearance about an hour and 20 minutes ago. Jenkins hung his head in court the whole time, not really reacting to anything. It was similar to last night as we got Jenkins during his perp walk.
Well, Sandra, just about 20 minutes ago, it was a chaotic, emotionally charged chain of events here at the courthouse. Officers at one point had to clear the courtroom when the family of Bella Edwards started screaming at the defendant. Take a look. This was shot just a few minutes ago. Those are Bella's relatives. They left the courthouse. They lost it in the courtroom when Mark Jenkins' attorney asked the judge to place her client in protective custody in jail. Bella's cousin yelled, quote, "Feed him to the wolves," as they pointed and cried, yelled at Jenkins' stepmom and two of his aunts who were also in the courtroom.
In 2021, Mark was allowed to plead guilty to the charge of manslaughter, and he only received 14 years. That's it. 14 years for claiming the life of someone who hadn't even begun to live.
People who knew 3-year-old Bella Edwards say she was precious and adored by anyone who met her.
They broke.
What?
They broke.
They broke?
Yeah.
How?
So they popped up.
She was amazing. You know, very sparky, very happy. She wasn't scared of a 108-pound dog, you know what I mean? And she literally was the cutest thing.
It seemed like they were a close family to me.
It's horrible. Nobody wants to hear that happen.
I'm just really devastated that it's happening.
Happy birthday, Stepfather.
As far as a motive, one was never released, and due to him copping out to a plea, there was no further explanation. I can, however, offer a theory. And let me be clear, this is my theory from my own experience. I myself was raised by a stepfather. He was a guy who ran the house with an iron fist. If you're raised by a step-parent that didn't exactly treat you right, you finally come to the realization that they just don't like you. It begins with being insecure. As they look into your eyes every day, it's only a constant reminder about their mate's past relationship. In their mind, they're picturing a perfect world, and in a perfect world, you don't exist. In their mind, you're an unwarranted responsibility, just an extra bill. Just because they choose to accept you doesn't mean they accept who you come with. It starts off as any normal relationship. You begin with the honeymoon phase. You fall for each other, and all of the flaws seem to be non-existent. And then that phase wears off. Reality hits, but it's too late. You've already fallen in love. And when you're an insecure person, it's a recipe for disaster. They know that there's someone out there who will treat you and your children as if they were their own. But if they let you go and let that happen, well, they can't deal with it. So love turns into resentment, and sometimes it turns physical. Let me be clear, when it comes to your children, they can pull the wool over your eyes, because half the time you won't even see it. Because just like you were trained to think that you're overthinking things, the children are trained as well. I was taught to keep my mouth shut. I knew not to say anything about anything that went on. So be very aware of the signs. If you come home and they're sitting in their room extremely quiet and you can't figure out why, well, something probably just happened. Another sign, If you're in the process of rewarding your child, and before they accept their reward, they look at either him or her, they're trying to see if the step-parent approves, because we learn not to make them unhappy. Be very wary if they seldomly use a name, and they refer to the person as it, him, her. It's subliminally showing you that they're detached. One last thing, you can't go back and change things. What's done is done. And even though you may have moved on, the effects last for a lifetime. So don't let too much time pass before you act. If you're watching this video, please use it as a learning experience. I can't stress this enough. Watch who you date. This is a guy with a history. It isn't like it was a guy who didn't have any red flags. I mean, he's done it before. He just came full circle. You have to stop and ask yourself, is the second chance really worth it? They say you should look at a person for who they are, not for what they've done. But what if what they've done is truly who they are? Just think about it. Rest in peace, Bella Edwards. Thank you for being a light for others.